Hey, what's up? This is Chris and welcome back. I hope you're ready to build out this landing page. Last time we got a lot of these components ready in Figma, and now what we're going to do is actually kind of build out the design of this and eventually get around to coding this whole page. Now, I'm not sure exactly how far we will get on the design today. You probably already know by the length of the video. I might break it up into two, I'm not sure. But let's go ahead and work on this top section here. And since we did a lot of the legwork last time, I think this will speed things up for us now going forward. All right, so let's jump back to the Figma. If you remember here, we've got a style guide page where we've got a lot of these components and our colors, and then we've got our actual page over here, which is the design that we haven't done anything with yet. I'm sure we're going to actually adjust that style guide. I already saw a couple things that I did that I don't normally do or that I would like to change, and so we're going to change that as we get going. But the first thing I'm going to do is set the whole background here to our dark background color. And remember, our variables were set up so that when we change that, it could change everything on the page so that the colors are picking from these color variables, these styles that we set up. Now, at the very top of the page, we do have a logo, and I'm just going to go ahead and paste that in. And so it's actually just some circles in Figma here with our brand colors. And if I remember right, let's see, these have, like this screen on it. Now, since I copied this from a different Figma file, it doesn't actually have our fill colors in. So if I wanted to, I could come here and grab these. I mean, it's going to look the same either way. We're just going to export this as a CSV. So I've got that set there. And then the next thing is I need our buttons that go across the top. Now, we've got these button components, and if I go ahead and pull them in here, I can hit Shift-I and pull them in, and you see them over this way. And this is one of the things I noticed when I was editing the last video. I don't want to have to go through this nested thing. So the way you get rid of that, let's close that down, is you come over here and let's see, under our text, we're just going to pull all this out of that frame. And same thing over here with the buttons. We're going to pull this whole component thing out of the frame. Now, by doing it like that, it's not going to be nested anymore. So when we reference it with Shift-I, it's just going to be sitting right there and we can grab it right away. All right, so what I'm wanting is I want this transparent button, and then I want this colored button for both of those. So let's come back over this way, and now let's grab one of these. And this button text I'm going to set up this way, and we're just going to say something like contact me. Because of the way we set it up, the button's width and height and all that is going to be set by that component, so we can just add text and remove text, and it will adjust with us. Now I'm going to go ahead and actually just grab this again and copy and paste it and come over here. And now I'm just going to come and pick our transparent one because that's the other one we want. And I think this was called About. And then I'll do this again for the pricing and the home. Now that I've got all of these set, what I can do is adjust them. So I'm going to actually grab them all like this. And there's a couple different ways you can adjust kind of how they're spaced out. There's just the typical adjusting here where you can distribute space horizontally and it will space them all out evenly. But there's actually a cooler thing you can do in Figma that's kind of like flex. So if I hit Shift-A, or you can right click and say add auto layout. Now I'd have to remove it now, but you're actually setting these up more or less in like a flex container. It doesn't quite have the flexibility of flex, like you can't wrap and things like that, so far as I know. But you can see here I've got a spacing between items, and I can just adjust it like this. And then I can also set padding around the whole thing, decide kind of where they're stacked, if they're packed or spaced between. That's the same as like justify content space between. And the cool thing is, like, for instance, if I were to come in here and try to drag this into the middle of here, I could actually set it inside of that if I can get it in there. Let's see. I can put it inside that and it'll actually just tack it onto the end. And then once it's inside, I can just switch it for different items inside of that. So it acts kind of like a grid or like a flex parent. So I've got all those set out. Now I do want to do a couple things. Let's see. First of all, I actually kind of want these a little bit wider here. So the nice thing is, because we've got these all set up over this way, I can just grab all of these. Actually, let's just grab them all like this. And for all of these, can I change the padding on all of them? Maybe not. Oh, here we go, mixed. So I'm going to click this here and let's set these to 35 and 35. Okay, so now they're all a little bit elongated. And if I head back here, these should have updated, and they do. So that's another benefit, is that you can adjust stuff later and it all works pretty quickly. Now that I've got all these, I'm going to do the same thing, except this time I'll right click and click add auto layout. And by default, everything kind of goes to the top, so like flex start. But I can come back over this way and just say I want everything to be in the center. And I can set it to space between or whatever, but since I had them set this far out, they'll stay like that. Now, if I start to move it like this, you see that they actually stay in the center. So what I'd want to do now then is say space between, and that way I make sure they're going to the outside sections. And if I were to come over here, you see I've got two sections here. I've got my logo, and then I've got this frame with the nav links. So I'm actually going to name this nav links, and then I'll come in here and name this logo. And just naming it as you go is a big help so that your sidebar doesn't get too messed up as you go. Okay, so we've got that section set, and that gives me a chance to kind of show you the whole auto layout thing. Now I'm going to come back over here, and the next thing I want to do is add some text. So I can jump up to my assets here and drag this over, or again, I could have hit Shift-I and just selected it from there. And I've got this, and I do actually want my largest text here, but you'll notice that this one automatically has bold applied to it, and I may not want that. So there's a couple things we can do. We could create a new kind of component set where I choose whether or not it's bolded, so that's one option. But I could also just come down here, and on this individual one, once I click into the text itself, I can just basically break it away from the default. Now, it's still connected to that, you can see right here, and if I were to reselect another variant, then like if I came in here and said 3XL and then went back to 4XL, you see here it's actually retaining that customization, but it's still connected to that component that we set up. So in this case, I'm going to leave it like this, and I also noticed something else. The fill is set to white. Now, that reminds me last time we ran into a trouble here, if I come back to our style guide, where the buttons didn't have the right text, and I should have thought that's because they were grabbing their colors from this, and these don't have the right text. So let's change all of these, and let's see. Let's set these to our, I think it's going to be this color, this text color right here. A little hard to see on this background, so maybe I should change the background itself. So let's change it to one of these local colors just so I can see stuff against it. Okay, now these are all just different sizes, but I'm actually going to also use a different text color occasionally. So I think what I might actually do is go ahead and create a variant for these. So let's space these out. And last time I showed you how to do this, but if I move all of these over, and then I'm going to hold down Option and then drag and release. And then basically I'm going to create new variants, except this time I need to change all of these. Let's see, let's grab text scale, and I'm going to add a new property, and we'll call this color. And I could also do this for bold. That's what I was just mentioning a second ago. Eventually those variants kind of get out of hand, and so you just want to do it for what seems absolutely necessary. So what I'm going to do on all of these is set their stroke color to, let's see, I'm going to want a white, and I'm probably also going to want a muted. I don't think I'm going to have too many whites, so let's just do a muted one, and we'll change the whites when we need to. All right, so I've got all these, and I'm just noticing that I set that on the stroke. We don't need that. Back in here, here's what I want this to muted. Now these are muted colors, so let's go ahead and grab these. I'm going to change this to muted, and I'm going to change all of these here to my text kind of default. All right, now, if you'll notice, it actually added extra sizes for all these. So I'm going to go back quickly and add 4XL, 3XL, etc., and I'll be right back with you. All right, so they've all now got those right sizes to them. So now I can come back over here, and if I were to select the component, now I've got a choice between 4XL, and then I can set the color, and I do want it just to be my text, so that works for me. Now let's come in here, and we're going to change this to say your kind of designer, and I'm not super worrying about copy in this. You'll see as we move, most of it's just lorem ipsum, and I want to focus more on layout. Now let's go ahead and grab this, and I can copy it down, and then let's change the size here, and I'm going to change this to large, and then inside here, actually for right now, let's just leave it with 5, or maybe I'll add a couple random words, and we'll adjust that in a second. So let's see, both this and this, I also want to change, not the component, but the actual text boxes in here. I want to change them to be center, just like that. And so that way they're right in the center of their boxes, which should be set out that way anyhow. But since I'm going to center all this text in a second, I think that will help. Now for this one right here, I actually want to change this to be my muted color. And then I'm going to have a button down this way. So let's hit Shift-I and just start typing button and hit enter. That comes in here. And for right now, I'm not going to change a lot of this, but I will go ahead and move this to gradient. And then this is going to be contact me. All right, and then finally, we've got a little no commitment text down here. So again, I can copy this down or hit Shift-I if I want to, either way. And this is going to be my extra small. And let's zoom all the way in, hitting Command and then scrolling with my mouse wheel. This will just say no commitment, like that. And I'll come back out and set it right there. Now, just like I did a flex alignment this way, I can actually do the same thing here. And again, I think it's called auto layout. And you can click it here. And again, it moves everything to the start. And in this case, I'm going top to bottom. Up top, I did left to right, and it kind of guesses depending on the positioning of the elements that you're stacking. So let's come in here and I can put these all into the middle, and that should work. Now, I do want this to be a little bit different because I actually want these two to be kind of stuck together and these two to be stuck together. So what I could do is grab both of these and hit Shift-A, and those get stuck together, and I can bring them here. And then I can adjust that separately like it's its own little flex container. Here, same kind of thing. And now I can come over here, put them in the middle, and let's adjust this as well. So I've essentially got two flex items, and then this is also a flex parent, I guess, is probably the better way to put it. We could put this at something like 50. Usually when I'm designing myself, if it's just for kind of a quick mock-up so I don't have to do this live in code, I kind of roughly sketch out the spacing and that kind of stuff, and then implement it and kind of refine it as I go in the code. Obviously, if I'm going to show this to a client, I probably want it to be as close as possible to the end design. It is a really important skill to be able to see a design and then match it pixel by pixel in your coding. But the nice thing is when you're the designer and you're the coder, you can kind of do what you need to do as long as your client is happy. And so sometimes I do a more or less a rough mock-up of the design and just tell them, hey, this is basically what it's going to look like. And if they're happy with that, then I'll move forward. If it's a bigger client or more than a single landing page, obviously I try to be a little bit more precise, and I might even set up some kind of set default paddings and things. Now, one thing to note in Figma is if you actually hold down, like let's say I've got this selected, if I hold down Option and then I hover over another thing with this thing selected, it tells me exactly how far apart these are. It also lets me adjust it if I've got the parent container here set as well. So you can actually move that, and again, you can move it over here as well. All right, so I've got this kind of header area done, so let's go ahead and name it header, like that. So now I've got two sections done, and the next area is I've got this SVG. I went ahead and grabbed this for free off of Undraw, and you can just come in here and browse, and I'm trying to remember what this was even called, maybe computer, I think. And I just grabbed one of the ones here, yeah, programmer, and you can click it, and it will download an SVG, and that's what I did. So I've got the SVG actually on my clipboard, so let me just paste it in there. And if you hold down Shift, you can resize images, and it doesn't crop it. If you don't, it actually moves it like this, or let's see. Yeah, if you hold down Command, it actually crops it. So let's put it somewhere kind of in the middle. And then behind all of these things, or a lot of the elements, I've got a blur thing going on with both the accent 2 and the accent 1 color. So what I'm going to do is come up here to the pen tool. You can also hit P to grab that, but I'm just going to tap up here, and then when I click here, I'm going to hold the Shift key and then move it so I got this Bezier curve showing, and then click at the bottom, and then same thing here, and let's see, same thing up here. Now you'll notice that I didn't actually hold it down that time, so I get this sharp corner. Well, I can actually move this with the whatever this tool is called. What's this called? The move tool. So V. If you click that, you can actually move and adjust it, and then create these little nodes in between. You can even see you can pop them up differently, but I just need a rough shape, so something like that is totally fine. Obviously, real designers are going to make this all pixel perfect, but this works for me. Now let's actually get rid of this stroke. I was trying to change the color on that. What I want instead is to change the fill color. Now that I've got a basic shape in mind, and I don't want it to be too perfect, I actually want it to be a little irregular, because what I'm going to do is add an effect down here, and this effect is not going to be a drop shadow, it's going to be a layer blur. Let's come in here, and I'm going to change this to something insane like 150, maybe even more than that, like 200, I don't know, something close to that. And I might come in here and actually, because I know these are going to be all throughout the page, I'm going to detach this style and then reset a fill color here. And let's actually set it to this, and I'm going to make it way less opaque. So like 40%, something like that, 30%. So this is the only time I'm going to have this color throughout the site. So let's just keep it like that. Now you may have noticed something, that as I've been adding these things, it's adding it inside this header, whereas this undraw is outside of this frame, that auto layout. So let me move this out. and that gives me more flexibility to move it around wherever I want. So I've got that set. Let's actually move this a little bit, and then I'm going to change the angle on this to be sideways like that. And maybe let's actually increase the layer blur just a little bit to like 250. And then I'm going to go ahead and copy this and paste it. And then let's go the other way like that. And I'm going to change the color here to this purple color. And again, I'm going to set this to something like 30. And so now I've got this nice blur shadow that I'm going to duplicate in code when I get to coding this out. So we've got that set. Let me go ahead and just group those. So you can right click and you'll notice that group is right here, Command G. So I've got these set in their own little group, and let's just name this blur. And I'm going to use that all throughout the document. So for now, maybe what I'm going to do is actually, let's just copy this out and make another one. I just did that by holding the Option key. And I'm going to move that all the way down, and we'll use that later. But then let's go ahead and group these. You could also add them in a layer or a frame if you want. So, but Command G will group those. We're going to say this is like the header image, something like that. And now I've got those set. Now the next section down here, we're going to have, if I move back to our live example, we're going to have these little blocks of code. Now, if you're thinking kind of as we've spaced things out, we can actually use those auto layouts to create these little cards, essentially, and then to stack them this way and this way. Now, it doesn't have like a grid replicate, so we can't actually set it out on a grid, but we can have two layers like this and then space them out vertically in their own auto layout as well. So let me show you how that's done. Let's come over here first of all and hit either O, or you can grab the ellipse tool like this. And let's just grab this, change the fill here to one of our colors. I think text. That doesn't seem dark enough. Maybe this text alt. And we'll eventually have an icon in there. I'll show you how to do that in a little bit. And then I need to hit Shift I. And let's grab one of our text things. We're going to come in here and we'll set this to medium. And then for now, I guess I'll just say cloud-based or something like that. We'll change this text later when we get to the code. So it's not super important right now. Then I'm going to come over here and let's change this to, let's see, our small, I think is what we've got. And for right now, I'm just going to add some random text. I'm going to show you a few things we can adjust here in a little bit. Now what I want is a space between these two, and then these two things to be tucked real tight. So I'm going to grab both of those, hit Command A, and that makes those an auto layout. You can see that over here. And then I'm going to grab all these and hit Command A, and that again spaces those out. And again, I'd probably want to pay more attention to the exact spacing for all of these. I also want to change this color here from text to muted. And let's see, this medium and this one should not be the same size. So maybe I forgot to change them earlier. That says it's medium, that says it's small. All right, so we've got some more work to do that we messed up on last time. Let's come back over here and let's see, my medium should be 29.33. So let me change both of those. And that would be this one right here. And same thing here. Now you can see because the buttons were all using that style, they all got a lot larger as well. And as frustrating as it is when you make these kinds of mistakes, the nice thing is I can just come here and change it in one place. Let's change these to small, and then it should adjust everywhere all over the site. So I'm going to do that, and I'll be right back with you. All right, so I've got all those set. I'm actually not going to use hover states on the design, so we're just going to leave those alone. And now this is a little bit bigger. This is that 29 number over here, 29.33, and this should be that 22. All right, so we're set there. Now what I'm going to do is just grab all this, and in fact, maybe... yeah, let me just clip this just a touch. Now, what I'm having to do, because if you remember, we set this up to where it basically has an auto height. So if I try to change this and adjust this, it's not going to actually move the text at all, which can be kind of frustrating, but you might remember that we set a lot of those text things over this way. So I can adjust this like that to set an auto height, an auto width. I can have a fixed height, and basically that adjusts how this text interacts with the box that is around it. Now, if you don't want to mess with these over here, you can also come up top here and say fill container, and it will just basically adjust as I move that text box itself. So that's this one right here. So let's move this around and it just adjusts for me automatically. So you kind of have to figure out how these things work. Oops, got to select the text again, how these resizing elements work. That can be kind of frustrating when you're first learning Figma, and I still kind of get confused sometimes with it. I've got this set over here now because it was all centered. I actually want this to be left aligned, and I think all the rest of that should work. Okay, cool. So we've got that set. Now, let's go ahead and grab all of this, and I'm going to hit Shift A one more time to make this its own little card. Now, it's got its own auto layout as well. I'm going to grab all of this, and then let's come over here. Let's see, what is this? That top section. So this actually should be inside here. All right, so we broke it out of its container. So we're just going to call this card, like that. And now that we've got one card, we can duplicate it. So let's just grab this and add it over this way, and another one here. So now I've got 3 of these. I'll hit Shift and grab them all, or you can grab them all on the side here, and then I'll hit Shift A, and that adds them as their own auto layout again. Now I can space this out like this, however I might want to, and then I can adjust where they sit in their positioning. Now these are all the exact same amount of text, which I think can actually be a problem when you're designing things. It's good to actually have some variation because that's way more realistic, and that way when you're kind of putting in dummy data, your design accounts for that dummy data. For now though, I'm going to leave it like that, and then I'm going to go ahead and grab this and copy it down, and then I can hit Shift A again and make these an auto layout. So if you're keeping track of these, we're stacking these things like Russian dolls, all right? We've got these 2 kind of card groupings. Inside here, we've got cards for each of these, and then this is that whole card section. So I'm just going to call this cards so I can keep track of it in the sidebar. Now we do need to add icons and some things like that, but we will get around to that. All right, now we've got this middle section here that has this, this section right here. All right, so what we want to do is add these arrows, a picture, some text, somebody's name, and these little dots. So I'm going to come back over here. Let's grab our ellipse again. We're just going to add fillers for all of these things right now. So we've got that person's face. Let me just go ahead and grab this because I know that's the exact text I want. Copy it. I'll paste it, except I do want to change it back to be center aligned like that. Now that I've got that, let's space this out. This will be the guy's quote. And then I'm going to come in here and paste that. And here I actually want to change the size. So let's move this to like large, something like that. And we'll say John. Oh, sorry, jump me out there. Let's grab this text here and say like John Doe or something like that. And I actually also am going to want this a little bit different than how I set up my text to start with. I want this to be bold on this, even though it's just the large size. And then I am going to change the actual text itself. So right now I've got it set to this muted color. I actually want it to have my gradient background, which I don't have a preset for, but again, you can quickly change them from the defaults without any problem. All right, now all of these, let's see, I'm going to copy this and then paste this down here so we can use that in a second. But all these are going to be essentially evenly spaced out. And you might notice here that this text, because we set it to be whatever height and width up top for this one, now that I copied it down, it retained those customizations. So if I want to change that around, I can just come back in here and click that. And then, let's see, this itself, I can readjust. And I'm trying to remember how to do that over here. Packed, center. I don't exactly remember. It's not super important. We've got this set. All right, so we've got all 3 of these. I'm going to grab all 3 of these with the Shift key and hit Shift A. And again, make these an auto layout and put them in the middle. So we've got that set. And now let's grab these little icons. And let's see, this color I actually do want to be a real color because I'm not replacing it with an image like I am these other ones. And I want this to be my white color. And this will be for the one that's filled in. We're going to set this to something like 16 pixels. And then I'm just going to hold Option and drag several of these out. And for all of these, let's go ahead and grab those with the Shift key. I'm going to remove their fill, and I'm going to add a stroke here. And again, I'm going to use one of my predefined colors. And then I can just drag this by clicking and dragging and adding some kind of balance like that, or some stroke like that. So if you grab all of these, again, you can adjust them in a bunch of different ways, but I'm just going to hit Shift A, and that sets them all out next to each other and puts them in their own little auto layout. And we've just got 2 sections left. We've got those little arrows, and for now, because I want to show you plugins later, I'm just going to put little fillers here just so I remind myself to come back and get those. And eventually, I would grab this, and this, and put them all in their own auto layout, and then center them like this. And once I've got that section, because again, you can't do 2-dimensional with this auto layout, then I would grab this and do the same thing and put that in its own auto layout. So we're going to call this like testimonials. All right. So we've got a lot of sections done here. Again, I obviously need to come back in here with colors and things, but this whole section here also has a background to it. So I'm going to grab my rectangle here and drag all this out, and then grab the fill of my background color. Now this actually needs to go below the testimonials, and you'll see that now it shows up and I've got this blur behind it. And I do want that blur connected to this, and I'm going to make it just a little bit smaller than the blur up above, so that it's just kind of to the center here. And then I'm going to copy this and paste it. Let's put it over here. We're going to use that again later down the road. All right, so this actually could be another great idea for a component, just so I'm not copying and duplicating this. If I wanted to change these colors, that would probably be a good idea. But for now, since we're already halfway done with the page, then I'll leave that to you. Okay, so I've got all of these. It's probably a good idea to grab this, and then let's bring this blur down here too. Oh, it's not that blur. It's this one and this blur. It'd probably be a good idea to group all these. So I'll hit Command G and group all these. And again, I'm going to call this testimony section. Okay, so we've got these sections laid out. Now I need some more space, and all these things live inside of this frame. So I can just click on the frame and drag this out, and that should drag out all the way. Now you may have noticed that as we adjusted things, like when I changed the components, that these all went back to their numbers. So this might be contact me, I think is what it was. And same thing here for that text. So I could paste that in, and you could adjust all this, and I will kind of by the next video, but just so you don't have to watch me do that, let's keep moving. Okay, so we've got most everything done in this top section. And if I move back this way, you can see that we're down to just this bottom little section here. So what I'd like to do is go ahead and call it good for now. In the next video, we're going to fill all this out. And probably more importantly, I'm going to show you how to quickly get in these logos here using an extension. We're also going to add in these pictures and any of these icons or things like that, all these icons using some extensions. And I'll show you how to do that in the next video. But I hope just kind of learning how to lay this stuff out is helpful for you, especially if you're having to use other people's Figma files. It can be kind of frustrating to work with Figma files if you don't understand how to use them. So even if you're just building this out for the sake of kind of getting used to the tooling, when you're getting designs from designers, it can be really helpful to actually have some experience doing your own stuff. And I think you'll find that really helpful when it comes to coding as well. Well, thanks so much for watching. Next time I'm going to show you how to supercharge Figma with some plugins to get those images and icons and all that kind of stuff. And I'll also finalize this design with you and get it ready for us to start coding it together. All right, I'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching. Happy coding.